Welcome back to Morning Express, and today we're reviewing what has been going on politically speaking. A quick reintroduction of the guests that we have in studio. In case you're joining us now, I have with me James Mamboleo, who is a lawyer, and Dr. Alutalala Mukhwana, who is also a lawyer, just looking at where we stand as a country. And just before we took the break, I had given Dr. Mukhwana a chance to basically give us what his thoughts are now that Dr. Okot has been included, or the court has ruled and said that they do not see any reason as to why he should not be on the ballot. But you are finishing your comments and saying that is neither here nor there in regards to whether we should have the elections or not. The elections were still supposed to be there.
Precisely, and I stopped at a point where I was saying, what happens if, for instance, come 26th of October? Because, as I've said, these elections will go on. Never mind in whatever style or format or whatever environment, but they will go on. The reason why I use that caveat or caution is because holding the election is just one of the things that were ordered to be done. The rest remain undone, and what the politicians are saying, let's just go to an election. And that is the basis of Honorable Raila's objection. So we go on 26th. There is 6.2 million, if we have to use those numbers. I've been cautioned elsewhere that those are not numbers we should use.
You cannot trust that they're computer generated according to some.
Precisely. But with caution, if I may say that come 26th, 6.2 million Kenyans don't go to vote. After 26th, what is the legitimacy of that government? You know, we have legality and legitimacy. Legitimacy has to do with the acceptability of that government.
By the people.
By the people. So 6.2 million plus, what would be the legitimacy of that government? Number two, come October 26th, and as I was saying previous before we went to a break, and in one or two constituencies, where Honorable Raila has ardent followers, and believe you me, with the kind of fanatism that these demonstrations are picking, you will have people putting their lives
of others at risk.
Of others, and saying, no election will go in. Even if you brought the military, God forbid, even if you brought the police, what happens if an election is not held in one of the constituencies? Will that election be said to have been in compliance with the Constitution? No, because the Constitution says, and the relevant law says, that there shall be held elections in each of the 290 constituencies.
Mamboleo, let me bring you in before I take some calls. Want to take some calls from Kenyans who are out there to basically hear what they have to say. But your thoughts on now the inclusion of our court and any other candidate who is going to say that, well, I can be on the ballot as well. I think we have others who have indicated that they have interest to be on the ballot.
Yeah, Japheth Kaluyu, Wainaina, and the rest. But there's something important I also need to point out. Right now, we are within the 60-day window that the Supreme Court instructed us within which to hold an election. Now, once we get out of this window, then we tread into a realm in which we no longer have regulation, at least constitutional regulation, on how we should move forward. And this is where I disagree a little with my learned senior, Daktari here, that for me, we'd rather have an election and assemble some government to continue running this country, as opposed to saying, let us wait and deal with every challenge that we have at IEBC, deal with every structural problem that we have with respect to the elections, and so on and so forth, and then have an election when everybody feels that we have a level playing field. I do not for a single moment seek to say in any way that the challenges that we have need to be addressed. IEBC was actually overhauled.
With respect.
Just a second.
I wish you allowed to interject
no,
there
just a second.
Okay.
IEBC was overhauled last year, okay? IEBC is almost on the verge of being overhauled again, because if we do what NASA is saying, then it means we are going to kick out most of the people running IEBC at present. So for me, it is extremely important that this country goes into an election, gets a president, gets a government, and that government takes it upon itself the huge responsibility of bringing everybody on board so that we can have a discussion on how to resolve the challenges that we have as a nation.
Okay.
Otherwise, if we jump into the political uncertainty, the constitutional crisis in which the Constitution no longer tells us what to do, the next thing you're going to hear is that you are here as president talking to us as who? You are not elected. So the legitimacy that you are talking about will still play out.
I'm not sure.
And then finally, this politics, this presidential election, remember again, is also a political contest, okay? Sometimes in those political contests, someone is going to lose. Even if the playground was totally free and fair, there must be someone who is going to lose. We should not entertain a scenario in which if I lose only because this election was not free and fair. So the Supreme Court said there was a problem with results transmission. Let the IEBC deal with the problem of results transmission and get us onto an election, and we get a government.
All right, Dr. Mukwana, very briefly, just respond to that.
I was fearing that because you told me very briefly.
Time, unfortunately, is not on our side.
My brother here is telling us, hey, yes, there is a fire ahead. There's also a fire here. But why don't we just walk into that fire? When we come out, we see how much we are burnt, then we can treat ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen who are watching us, what is ahead of us is potentially a catastrophic situation for this country. Legitimacy of a government has equal weight with the legality of a government. If the current government is actually violating the Constitution as it is doing now, and then you are saying, hey, let's just go ahead, hold the election, which definitely Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta will come back, and then once he's back, then we can negotiate. Are you kidding me? That will yield a government worse than Moi 3 times. These solutions have to be found now, not after. Have you listened to Honorable Matiang'i? If you have lived this country longer, and with respect, looking at my colleague, he's not lived as long as I've done. If you've lived in this country long enough,
this is where I should interject.
Okay.
You didn't allow me to interject.
He allowed you to finish. And I need to pick calls.
Yes.
I need to pick calls.
So, Michael, I will advise my brother to go and read the history of this country in the 80s and 90s.
Okay. Let me pick a few calls, then we come back to the panel that we have here. I'm going to start with Nelson, who's calling from Migori. Nelson, thank you for calling. To your question or your comment regarding what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yes, go right ahead.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Nelson.
I want to talk hello.
Yes.
I want to talk about resignation of Raila Amolo Odinga. Raila officially resigned. And sent a letter to IBC. The IBC has not written back to Raila, telling him that he has not signed from 24A. Instead, they are making comments on public that Raila has not signed this. They should have written back to Raila, telling Raila that you have not signed from 24A. On the basis of demonstration, you know, we have just seen that there are some business people who are losing their properties. But recently, some people came up saying that they are business community and they are protecting their businesses. So when others are crying that their businesses are looted, we are wondering the identity of those people who are protecting their businesses. Then, on the side of Matiang'i's ban, you know, when Matiang'i said that he has banned demonstration on the CBD because of security reasons, now it is like those people who are not staying in the city, who are not having any business in the CBD, are not protected. So with them, they should just be affected. So I think Matiang'i is playing politics.
Okay.
It's not providing security. Because even the CBD is part of the country where people have right to demonstrate and picket. So these people, what Matiang'i should have told us, that this business community who are protected by demonstrating, you know, to demonstrate, you must serve a notice to the police. So the notice which was served to the police, who is the author of this letter, and he has a business where? And the ones who are looted, why were they not protecting their businesses?
All right. Thank you, Nelson. I think we've got your point. Thank you for calling. Let's move on to Charles in Mombasa. Good morning, Charles.
Hi.
Yes, go right ahead. Charles in Mombasa, we are listening in. Please go right ahead to your question and comment and try and keep it brief, please.
Hello?
Charles in Mombasa, go ahead. Okay, unfortunately, I think we have... Yeah? Okay, I think, Charles, you're probably trying to listen to yourself on TV. Let's move on to Sarah in Eldoret. Let me pick a call from Sarah in Eldoret. Sarah, to your question or comment, please. Sarah in Eldoret.
Hello?
Yes, good morning.
Miangu leo Hello?
Yes, nakusikia Sarah, endelea. Okay, please switch off your television. Weka volume ya TV off tafadhali ili tuweze kuwasiliana.
Okay, niko mzima sana na wasalimia kwanza.
Asante, tumesalimika.
Okay, nilikuwa ninataka leo yangu ni ya Matiang'i. Matiang'i amefanya jana makosa kubwa sana kusimamisha demonstration. Sasa inatakana Matiang'i hakufanya jambo la maana kwanza, kitu ya kwanza. Alisimamisha demonstration na ni right of the people kufanya demonstrate.
Okay.
Hiyo ni ya kwanza. Ya pili, nilikuwa ninaomba kama ni watu wanafanya demonstration ya maana na watimize vile serikali inataka. Hiyo ni ya kwanza. Ya pili, ninaomba watu wa human rights waangalie Matiang'i kwa sababu Matiang'i anataka watu waumie, polisi wakuje wapige watu, ikue fujo, ikue rapsha na sio mzuri namna hiyo.
Haya, asante sana Sarah.
Hiyo ngoja kidogo. Okay. Na nilikuwa nataka kuomba mapresident yetu Uhuru na Raila wakae chini waongee ndio waangalie hali sisi watu wa mashinani tunaumia kabisa. Sababu tunaumia, economy imekuwa mbaya, maisha imekuwa ngumu kwetu, hatujui hata namna ya kufanya.
Aya, asante sana Sarah. Let's pick a call from Douglas in Kisii. Douglas in Kisii, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, go right ahead to your question or comment.
Hala.
Yes, endelea.
Mimi napiga simu kutoka Kisii.
Okay.
Na nilikuwa nataka kuchangia.
Endelea.
Sasa kwa maoni yangu mimi naona kati ya Raila Odinga na Uhuru Kenyatta rais wetu. Nilikuwa nataka wakae pamoja waelewane kwa sababu sisi ndio tunaumia. Sasa zingine wako safe, unajua, wako protected. Alafu sasa kama saa hii njaa imeanza kukuja, unajua, kidogo kidogo. Kama saa hii sasa mahali penye napata chakula yangu kidogo imekuwa imeathirika kidogo. Sasa alafu na kitu kingine naenda kwa alafu nani Matiang'i sasa wanasema watu wasiende kwa parapara na Road Center, Mombasa, Kisumu. Hapo unaona sio mzuri kwa sababu hao wananchi hiyo ni haki yao ya kuandamana. Na kitu inafanya hii vitu inalipika ni hao wengine business community of Nairobi. Unajua wakati hao watu wanakutana face to face, obviously inakuanga ni vita. Kama ni vita unapata sasa mwingine amechukua, kama ni chupa ametupa, kama ni mawe ametupa. Na hiyo mawe unajua ikitoka inaenda kwa gari ya mtu mwenye ajui kitu inaendelea, inaenda kwa duka ya mtu, inaenda maybe inagonga hata mtu, unaona. Kwa nini wasikue kama ni business community hiyo ikuwe na siku yao ya kuandamana, kama ni nasa hiyo ya kuandamana wakoe na siku yao, wala wasikutane. Alafu nakuja kwa Ikuru Court. Wanasema sasa kama Raila amejiondoa, Ikuru Court eti wataweza sindana na kama mtu utaweza weka mtoto wa standard 1 na mtu wa form 4 wapishane na nani na wa standard na wa form 4. Mimi nasema hivi, kama wanasema isi Ukuru Court washindane naye, hapa hakuna haja mambo ya uchaguzi, because tunaona obviously Raila Uhuru atashinda Ukuru Court, hata atashinda na hao wengine, unaona. Sasa inatakikana mwenye anamkaribia, ndio maana hata kwa shule tuko na number 1, number 2, number 3 mpaka last.
Sawa. Sawa, asante.
Kitu yenye naomba hivi, kuna wenye wanajua sheria kabisa. Unajua mtu amesomea sheria kabisa na out, lakini hataki kusema ukweli, anaegemea pande moja ama mahali penye anakulia. Kama ni mwenye anajua sheria pande ya NASA, anaegemea NASA. Anajua sheria pande ya Jubilee, anaegemea Jubilee. Kwa nini hataki kusimama katikati aseme iko hivi na hivi na hivi? Pande kwa sababu sheria iko inasaidia kila Mkenya, si inasaidia peke yake. Na mapolisi hakuna haja ya kutumia nguvu mingi, tuliona hapa Nairobi sasa vile mtu aliumia mguu akapigwa risasi hapo, hakuna, sijasikia kwa news huyo mtu amechukuliwa hatua ama hiyo gari ilienda wapi, kwa sababu hiyo gari kuna majina, hakuna mtu amefuatilia. Lakini mtu anafuatilia kwa watu wenye kuandamana si haki yao. Kama sasa hawataki tuandamane, sio watu wa IPC watoke au watu 6, na Kenya tuko watu wangapi sasa?
Sawa.
Kwa sababu ya watu 6 ndugu yangu. KTN News nimefungulia tu 8 hours hivi, lakini nimeona mambo mnafanya ni mzuri, lakini
asante Douglas. Hey, Douglas hana breaks,
lakini tafadhali tukae na amani, wakae waelewane, tusikizane.
Asante Douglas, thank you very much. I think we've got your point, we've got your drift, and allow me to also just take some of your comments that are coming through via social media. Remember, the hashtag is Morning Express KTN, and I can see they're coming in fast and furious. There are conversations that are also going on online, and if you'd like to tweet, it's at KTN News, or you can tweet me directly, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga. The other hashtag, or rather the other Twitter handles are also going to be displayed now. Emmy Imara says, and this is in response to the question that we asked, whether NASA leaders should call off the demos, and she says, yes, in the CBD, yes, because they are actually looting from people's businesses instead of demonstrating, hence losing the demo's purpose, and it's not fair. We have Jimmy Hughes McGuay, who says that's how childish NASA formations have become. I guess that's in response to a thread that's going on. Some of these comments are on a thread. We have Dr. Wadera Kimani, who says, yes, if NASA, this is in response to the question, if NASA wants to show Kenyans they are reasonable leaders, they should call off the demos as the demonstrations of rationality. We have Lucas Ngoya, who says, change is painful and fretting is not an option. We cannot put away our rights, which are granted by the state, by God by God washed down the drain. Tibim Tialala is what he finishes off with. We have Harun Thuku Maura, who says NASA thrives on lies. Nobody banned demos. They were told to keep off the CBD. Wow. So the conversation goes on online, and keep them coming. I'll read them through as we go along. But as we continue, because time is not on our side, opposition legislators have poked holes into the controversial election laws amendment bill that now awaits presidential assent. John Badi and Mutula Kilonzo Jr. have questioned the composition of the Parliamentary Select Committee behind the bill timelines, describing the whole process as unconstitutional. This is what they had to say.
That there is nowhere where you have a bicameral system and one bill is debated and tabled simultaneously. And what is even of worse contradiction is that the person who tabled the bill in the National Assembly says it doesn't concern counties. The one who tabled it in the Senate says it concerns counties. At what point did these two committees meet? Because they didn't meet during the day and during Senate hours to agree on a joint select committee.
It is even criminal to imagine that in a democracy you can have one political party or one political grouping forming itself into a committee, purportedly a committee, calling it a committee of the House, and going on to transact business on behalf of the people of Kenya.
All right, now, as NASA lawmakers fault the amendment election laws, their Jubilee counterparts insist the process was above board and that opposition MPs are to blame themselves for boycotting the sittings. Kiambu Senator Kimani Wamatangi says the amendments will serve future generations in equal measure.
As we have said, irreducible minimums would have been best reduced to law in this committee. Here we have a law that can guide the country when we say we want to go to our elections on the date as set. Then the rules of the game can be found in law.
You tell us to shelve our work and not to amend law because this is not the right time. Every time is the right time so long as we are doing it within what is within our constitution.
All right, so now that's where we are, and I'll start with you, Mamboleo. First of all, we are back to the same debate, which honestly is getting very tiring. Legal versus not legal, and there's goodwill, not goodwill. It just looks like everybody has got their backs to the wall, their heels to the ground, and they're going to maintain and keep their stand until we tilt over as a country. Your comments?
Everybody's digging in. This is a political contest. I agree with certain things that NASA says, and I agree with certain things Jubilee says, but I don't agree with everything they say. First and foremost, I think in the spirit of the amendments proposed to the election laws last year in 2016, and the bipartisan committee that came up with some of these laws to guide our electoral process, I think Jubilee would have been a little bit more cautious, and probably they would have, in the interest of everybody, in the interest of showing goodwill, they would have waited a little, not to rush to pass the amendments that they have passed in what you have just seen. However, I also don't agree with NASA entirely. When they boycott the sittings of Parliament, they boycott the sittings of committee. I don't know by what reason they are driven to do that. I know they are protesting. However, I think they cannot be allowed to hold Parliament at ransom. Parliament has to continue working and make sure that it's doing its job. So, in my view, NASA should get all its MPs into the House. They should sit in parliamentary committees, come to the plenary, and make sure they participate effectively in shooting down, even if at least they may not enjoy the numbers in Parliament, they would state very clearly on the floor of the House and in committee really what they expect Parliament to do with respect to some of these things. Now, I know we are in a ferocious environment in which everybody wants to score a goal, but I think some of the methods or some of the methodologies that NASA is employing are not entirely acceptable. Let the members of Parliament come to the House. Let them enjoy the privileges they have within those committees and deliberate those bills. On the other hand, I know why government is keen on passing those laws. The President and the government have come to a situation in which they now no longer have faith in some of the processes that are going on. So, for instance, in amending the law with respect to the returning officer for presidential elections, they're just trying to make sure that nothing will stop the election going on, because as we speak...
Is it that nothing will stop the election, or nothing will stop them from coming back into government?
Sorry?
Is it that stopping just that the elections will not go on, or is it stopping or making sure that they short circuit everything so that they end up back in government?
As it is, if, for instance, the chairman of the IEBC decided to resign, then you cannot have a presidential election, because the chairman of the IEBC is the returning officer for the presidential election. So they are just, out of an overabundance of caution, trying to make sure none of these eventualities happens. Of course, that looks like ill will to the other side. But I know why they're doing so. It's the same drastic measure that, for instance, NASA is taking, for instance, by boycotting Parliament. So what we have said here and what needs to happen, really, is for these two parties to come down and speak and talk, so that we develop that goodwill that is necessary, so that some of these things stop happening.
Let me bring in Dr. Mukwana, because I can see even as you were speaking, he was getting to the edge of the seat and can't wait to come in. Dr. Mukwana.
Yes. Thank you. Now he's actually seeing the light, as it were. The word here, Michael, is dialogue. Whichever way you look at it. You may go east, west, north, south, but it all crystallizes on one thing, dialogue. Because I've listened to Honorable Wamatangi. Wamatangi says those irreducible minimums
should have been brought to law.
Reduced to law. That is a dig at NASA's demands and demonstrations. So you see, what Kimani is telling these guys is this: you have prided in pushing demands, calling them irreducible. You are prided in demonstrations. We are priding in our tyranny of numbers.
We have outsmarted.
Precisely. That's what he said. You got it. Thank you very much, Mike. We've got it. We have outsmarted you. So that is the spirit in which I have always seen those amendments. And Michael, we spent 2 shows here discussing about the merits and demerits of this amendment. I do not think I want to dwell so much on the demerits. It's a bad law. It is for the short term. it is not for posterity. And I reminded our viewers and these politicians that the same knife that they are sharpening, you just don't know when it will be twisted your direction.
Absolutely.
It happened in 1978, 79, when a section of this country did not want President Moi to become president. And they spearheaded what came to be known as Change the Constitution movement, led by Dixon Hika Kimani. That time, we had Mungiki also, but they were called Ngorokos. Fast forward, in 1980s, after Moi took over, the same knife, Nyayo twisted it. And what led was a brutal assault on the same guys who had done that. Section 2 of the Constitution was amended. Same spirit with the previous one. And today, we have casualties of that. Stanley Matiba, just look at him. Rubia, George Ndenge, Miruki.
We are not short of examples.
Thank you. So, what I must tell our politicians, we have been there. Kindly, we beseech you, don't take us back there. You can afford to stock supplies for 2 months, 3 months.
Or even leave the country.
Even leave this country. We small guys cannot even afford to stock for a day. We have to wake up every morning, go to our barber shops, go to Mama Mboga. We can't afford. Please set your egos aside. This country has been here before Uhuru and Raila. It will be there after Uhuru and Raila. We must remain as a country. Please, dialogue. There is nothing that is going to solve the situation now other than dialogue. Anything else is telling us, let's start killing ourselves, see how much we've killed ourselves, then we can talk. We don't want to go there.
Fantastic closing comments. Your closing comments, Mamboleo.
This electioneering period must come to an end at some point. And I believe very strongly we should go into an election, set in place a government, and that government should bear the responsibility of bringing the nation together, and so that we can start the long process of solving the challenges that face this nation. I do not agree for 1 second that we should allow ourselves to fall into that constitutional crisis in which we no longer have constitutional regulation, so that we can then continue speaking in that particular environment. Let us set ourselves, for ourselves, our government, let us put in place every mechanism that will allow us to have that conversation. But most importantly, as we have kept saying, eventually, these political contests will come to an end, and Kenyans are going to have to live side by side. So what we need to understand now is that for either side of the divide, carry out your political competition while minding the business of this country tomorrow, so that you don't bring this country now. Let's not exercise what we are seeing, which is the equivalent of a Samsonian moment. You know, let me bring this house down because I can't have what I want. So let everybody exercise their political rights responsibly. Let government not use power unnecessarily where it shouldn't, but let citizens also, as they undertake their activities, also be mindful of the law. That's extremely important.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. That's James Mamboleo and Dr. Alutalala Mukhwana, who are both lawyers. And, well, that's a summary of what has been happening this week. It's now 28 minutes after 8. We're going to take a short break, but do stay with us. We've got more updates coming up. And we'll also be hooking up with our reporter, our political affairs reporter, Patrick Mimo, and giving us an update on that bill that now basically was passed even in the Senate and waits the presidential assent and what we should be looking forward to. So do stay with us right here on KTN News. We take a short break. We'll be right back.